Somers, and welcome to the Somers Town Board Work Session, Thursday, September 5th, 2019. So if you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and be seated. Okay, our first order of business is to open our continuing public hearing for the establishment of the Somers Sewer District Number 2 in Lake Lincolndale and Lake Shenorock. Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Okay,
Like-
so before
yes.
you do that, now you will open the public hearing for September 5th. And then we're going to combine the public hearing from August 15th,
At the close of
at
tonight's
the beginning, into September 5th. And then the August 15th hearing will be done with.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to open the hearing for tonight,
Correct. For September 5th.
for September 5th. Do I have a
Second.
second?
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
And then you'll move to combine the proceedings from August 15th to September 5th.
But I have to get publishing and posting first.
Yes.
Okay. Here's a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Now publishing and postings.
So the public hearing was published and posted on the Town Clerk's Bulletin Board and published in Somers Record on August 22nd.
Okay. All right, so we now have our public hearings combined.
Yes, you have one public hearing now going forward.
Okay. So I would ask at this time our town engineer just to come up and give us an overview of
Okay.
what our sewer plans are, and then we'll take comments from the public.
Thank you, Supervisor. My name is Steve Robbins. I'm a principal with Woodard and Curran and a resident here in Somers. Pleased to provide additional comment on the town's sewer project. I'm here with our project manager, Ken Kolbrenner, to be here for you and for the community to answer questions. Why we're here, these two lakes have been degrading over time. The water quality has been deteriorating in the lakes, and these are part of a multi-year program towards revitalization of these two lakes. Lake Shenorock is in an advancing stage of eutrophication. The lake is dying. It's being filled in with sediment. Lake Lincolndale, the beach there was recently closed due to algal blooms. Both Shenorock and Lincolndale are listed by the New York State DEC as impaired water bodies. And so these are water bodies that the state is paying attention to and has recognized the impairment as well. The Somers Lake Sustainability Program Committee was formed in 2017 to provide input to the town board and to help the communities advocate for the needs of these water bodies. They've been meeting regularly since 2017 and have helped the town formulate what we call the three-prong approach to improving water quality in the lakes and reinvigorating the lake communities. The first prong of that is around stormwater, improving the quality of stormwater that's entering the lakes. And an example of work done towards that is the stormwater improvements at and around Lake Shenorock that was funded with grant monies to the town to help remove some of the pollutants and contaminants from stormwater before they enter the lake. The second prong there is where we are now, which is around handling wastewater. These are very dense communities with septic systems that are of very high density, and that can contribute to poor water quality as well, and that's what we've seen over time. The third prong of that is around recreation and really kind of restoring the community's access, reliable access to the water bodies themselves. First, to do that, we have to clean up the sources of issues to the lake. Some key points on this initiative to sewer these lake communities. This has been a long time in coming. Dating back to the mid-90s, there was an MOA, Memorandum of Agreement, between the Department of Environmental Protection and Westchester County that established funds to be made available to help improve water quality in the New York City watershed in these northern Westchester communities. $68 million were dedicated, $50 million of which were targeted at sewer improvements by the Northern Westchester Watershed Committee, which is a committee of 19 supervisors of Northern Westchester communities, the DEP, Westchester County, and others. That organization focused $50 million of that money from New York City DEP on 5 communities: Somers, the lake communities in Somers, North Salem around Peach Lake, the business district in Bedford, there's a district in Newcastle, and part of the sewer district in Yorktown as well were also targeted with those funds as being the areas that would have the greatest benefit of water quality for those funds. That money for sewering the lake communities here in Somers was recommitted by the Northern Westchester Watershed Committee in 2016 and again in 2019 as well. The planning for this also dates back to that same time period. In 98 to 2000, the pump stations that serve the preserves were sized, and the force main that brings wastewater from the preserves across the town and ends at the Peekskill wastewater treatment plant, that infrastructure was all sized in anticipation of being able to take the flow from these lake communities. The historic hurdle to making this happen, obviously there's a long time between that money being provided by the DEP in 1998 and now, has been a political issue. What has to happen is Westchester County has to expand the boundaries of the Peekskill Sewer District to include any new homes. That's what happened when the preserves were built, and there's been a resistance to further expand that district. Through the advocacy of the town and others, that historical hurdle seems to have been lifted. It's our anticipation that the county legislature will vote to extend the sewer district if the town decides to move forward with this project. That would allow for the wastewater from these communities to go to the Peekskill wastewater treatment plant. The town has been looking at a variety of options for the last several years as to how to sewer these communities and make use of that money that's been dedicated to sewering these communities. That has included looking at alternative disposal locations. That has included on-site disposal with a community septic alternative, or possibly sending this wastewater to the Heritage Hills wastewater treatment plant. This, we believe, is the, while some of those options were technically viable, this is the lowest cost option in the long term for these communities and for the homeowners in them. Let's see. There's, just as a matter of context, if we were to send this wastewater to the Heritage Hills wastewater treatment plant, that would probably be about $1.4, $1.5 million more in capital cost. And the O&M reoccurring cost on that would probably be an additional $300 per year for each homeowner. The town is right now working to leverage the $10 million in money that's been identified for sewering the lake communities from that DEP fund into additional money, grant money, through the Water Infrastructure Improvement Act, the WIA as it's known, which is a New York State grant program. And if that money is granted, that would be put towards the first phase of this project to expand that. The town is looking at future grant funding, whether that's additional WIA funding or other grant programs at the state and local level, like the Water Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act, which is a federal program, or the Water Quality Improvement Program, which is New York State, and other grant sources to help defray the future costs of this. The promise of future grant funding from the New York City DEP or from these other sources is really also kind of tied up in the town's ability to move forward with the initial phase of this project. As with anything, nothing is going to bring more momentum to this project than getting started. If we were trying to seek all of the grant funding at one time, that would be a much larger lift, but showing some progress on this first phase makes it much more palatable to grant funding agencies that this is a real project, that it is moving forward, and that their money will be well spent. With that, I'm going to introduce Ken Kolbrenner, our project manager, who will walk through some of the details on this. We have been listening to the community input and feedback through this process. This is obviously a continuation of the August public hearing on this. There have been other information sessions, including one in late August at the Lake Shenorock Community Center. We've tried to consolidate and compile the questions that were most commonly asked into a document to help the public understand the map plan and report that's the basis for this district. There are some handouts near the agendas at the front door that do answer some of those commonly asked questions. That document is available on the town's website for the public as well. So with that, I'll introduce Ken Kolbrenner.
Thank you.
Good evening. So, as Steve mentioned, this has been presented previously, and so we'll just provide a brief summary and then head into to questions. But what we're looking at is formation of the sewer district for the entirety of the developed properties within both the Lake Shenorock and Lake Lincolndale communities, but breaking extension of the sewers into multiple phases over time. And so looking to use the initial $10 million as well as potentially some additional grant funding for phase one, and then as future funding is available, extending that to the rest of the community. And as Steve mentioned, the challenge of doing all of it at once is a large capital cost. So it's an additional $10 to $13 million project cost. Phase two for the balance of Lake Shenorock, depending on how much we do in phase one, would be about $28 to $30 million total project cost. And Lake Lincolndale, $21 to $22 million total project cost. And those project costs then defrayed by a certain amount of grant funding and have set the target grant funding in the map planner report to target an average annual cost per property. And those annual costs are based on a combination of county fees for connection to the Peekskill sewer system, as well as local O&M for the local sewer district, as well as financing costs once debt is incurred. And so as part of phase one, there would be the county buy-in and the county cost, but would be looking to use 100% grant funding, and so no initial financing cost for phase one. So that would be an average annual cost based on an assessed value average of about $323,000 market value per property, average cost of $585 per year. The balance of properties outside of phase one would begin paying the county buy-in as being included in the sewer district. So again, at an average market value, that's about $184 per year. But that does come with a regular septic pump out reimbursement program available through the county until such time as the sewers are extended and the properties are connected. And so there's no O&M cost until the property is connected. Once the district is expanded and bonds are taken out to pay for the balance, the average annual cost is estimated at $1,200 per year, and that is set in the map planner report, and that sets the target funding that we will be aiming for. And what will likely happen is those future phases will be happening in multiple phases. The grant cycles are typically on a yearly cycle, and so we're planning to apply, actually the grant deadline is next week for WIA, so planning to target an additional $3 million this year, and then plan that going forward on a regular process each year to be able to extend the sewer district or extend the sewer mains to connect those additional properties in multiple phases. Once that process is started of the phase 1 properties, that financing cost is then spread across all of the district parcels. So there is potentially a period of time where properties are not connected, but start paying the financing cost. But again, that will be less than the annual average of $1,200 per year. We did, there's some information, images in there. We had several questions about grinder pumps. There are portions, the majority of the sewer system will be gravity, but based on the topography, there are sections that need to have individual grinder pumps per property. That consists of a below grade duplex pump station, so it has 2 pumps for redundancy, that is connected to the electrical system at each property. The health department requires backup storage to be provided for those, a minimum of 24 hours of storage based on the projected peak flow for the residents. And so typically that will provide more than 24-hour storage, because in an extended power outage, typically water usage goes down. There is also a generator receptacle that will be provided on the electrical panel for those grinder pumps to provide the ability for a portable generator to be utilized to periodically pump the pumps down, regain some of that storage. Going through a couple of the other questions that were asked, there have been, as we've been working with the community, there have been several properties identified, again based on topography, that may benefit from the use of an easement to flow through a neighboring property to connect sooner to a sewer main that may be installed as part of an earlier phase. That's certainly something that we would support doing to help minimize overall project cost, as well as to be able to connect more properties sooner. And so we'll be working with the community as we get into design to identify those opportunities. Regarding the laterals, so part of the project cost does include extension from the sewer main in the street onto the individual property, to the vicinity of the septic system, to provide that connection for each property. Several homeowners have asked, can I make that connection on my own? And we would certainly welcome that, but there's not currently a process to be reimbursed through that. Right now the town, once the district is formed and those properties are ready to be connected, the district would enter into an easement agreement to go on the property and make that connection. If there's internal plumbing required, depending on where the septic pipe comes out, that would be a cost for the individual homeowner, but right now the cost for the on-site work on the individual properties is carried as part of the overall project cost. As well, there were several gray water systems identified, perhaps a washing machine or dishwasher that may be connected to a separate dry well. That does contribute to lake pollution through phosphorus and nutrient loading. And so the intent of this project would be to connect all of the household wastewater effluent, and so eliminate those connections as well. And so the connection would be to a single point for each property. As was discussed, the sewer fees assessment is based primarily on assessed market value of the properties. The average market value for the sewer district is about $323,000 per property. Those fees will vary based on that assessed value. If you're lower market value than that, the fee will be less than the $1,200 per year. If you're more, it will be higher, up to about $2,200, depending again on that market value. And the town O&M piece is based on a benefit assessment. That's the smallest piece of that, is spread across all properties, as these are primarily single-family residential, typically similar wastewater usage. And then finally, the sewer district was formed based around the R10 zoning, so small properties, small lot sizes with limited ability to treat septic on site, and so to deal with those. As part of the public engagement process, did identify a few additional properties that are along the potentially the proposed sewer route as part of future phases, and would have the ability to benefit from that. And so did work with those homeowners and would be presenting those to be included in the sewer district at this point as well. That is 28 Lakeview, 30 Lakeview, and 2 Osborne Court in Lake Shenorock. Again, those are properties that were outside of the sewer district, but along the proposed sewer main, and so would be able to be included in the sewer district and extended a lateral. There are other properties that have been identified that have potential environmental impact based on their proximity to a stream that may drain to a lake or wetland or other situation that are outside of the district, that are outside of the R10 zone. At this point, those properties would not be included in the district because doing so would require extending the proposed sewer main. And so if those properties were to be included in the future, would require extension of the main and likewise extension of the sewer district in the future.
Ken, one question there. So of those 3 properties that you said would be added in based upon sort of common sense, based on the topography, there was one, I don't know if the lady is here tonight, up on a hill where it would go right in. It makes perfect sense.
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay.
That's Lakeview.
That are those properties.
Okay. I just wondered. Okay. Yeah, because that one seemed to be, based on the description, that would make some
So that's
sense.
the Mancini
Yes.
property, I
Is
guess,
that
right?
they would be included in phase 1?
They would not be included in phase 1. The pipe is not proposed as part of phase 1 to extend past their property, but would be included in the sewer district then as part of the phase 2
Okay, so they're going to be
extensions.
included in the sewer district, but everybody's not in phase 1.
Correct.
Got it. All right.
All right. That's all I had. So
Okay. Well, there you have it, folks. This is our, if you haven't heard, we're setting up a sewer district number 2 in Somers, then you haven't been reading the papers, going to public hearings. So, look, the town board is here to listen to you, any concerns you might have. So if anyone wants to come up and address the board on this issue, please do. In the meantime, board members?
We got somebody come on up.
I just wanted to just have a quick question for the engineer.
Out of uniform.
That's, yeah. Hey, guys. Tim McCardle, 16 Cypress Lane, Shenorock. Just a quick question. My septic tank and fields are my whole front yard. My question is, would I have a period where I would have no service at all during the period that they were trying to hook up? Would there be a time, since the septic system in my fields are between where the pipe is going to be in my house, would I have to anticipate that there would be a period, a week or a day or some period of time where I would lose service to my whole house? Can you answer that question for me?
Yeah, not a service you want disrupted.
So the would have to look specifically at the individual property to look at the exact specifics of the location and length of the lateral, but the anticipation would be trying to minimize that period of loss of service to within potentially a few hours as part of a single day. And so try to lay as much pipe of the lateral beforehand and then, make that connection at a single time.
Okay, thank you very much.
Nice.
Thank you, Tim. Yes, sir.
Hi, I'm George Lux from Lincolndale. I'm also on the board. I don't pretend to be an expert at water quality, but I know we have one of our board members that does a lot of the work, Mike O'Keefe. From what my limited understanding is most of the problems in the lake don't appear to be septics, but appears to be runoff from dry wells or be it fertilizer. We also have another board member here that's been asking for a couple of years now. The town came and built retention ponds, lined it with riprap. We've been asking for years to get those cleaned out, to no avail. Now, from what I understand, that Highway Department is claiming they don't have enough heavy equipment operators. I happen to know a lot of the town employees, and I don't understand why we don't hire more. You have 4 or 5 that have been running machines since they were kids. I grew up with them all, so I don't know what the issue is there, but where are the, I looked at the map here, where is the main running over to the preserves? I can't, I see it on here, but I can't determine what road that is. In Lake Lincolndale, I'm sorry.
Sure. So from Lake Lincolndale, it actually doesn't tie into the, it ties in right there on that eastern boundary. You want to point to that, Ken? That's existing sewer. I think it's an existing gravity sewer in that neighborhood.
Pump station here, so we're going
So what
cross country, so we're going direction.
I can't see that.
This is between Juniper and Myrtle.
So that would be large?
Yes.
So when you go down Lawrence, what happens when you cross over Plumbrook?
Yep, so there's several ways that we can cross a water body. Often we'll do a directional drill underneath if it can't be open cut to minimize the environmental impact.
Okay, then where is the, you're talking about grinders and pumps, where are they being located?
For those properties that can't drain by gravity, either just because of topography or for other reasons, it would not be cost effective to bury a sewer as deep as it would need to be to serve that property by gravity. That would be located within an easement on the homeowner's property.
So how does, I'm familiar, I grew up in the lake. You have a drop off, I don't know what the grade is, 20, 30% maybe. Goes down to Plumbrook and then it goes back up. So how did gravity won't obviously, I know where the infrastructure is located in the preserves. So how do you get from Plumbrook up to that grade?
So in that area, the sewer drains by gravity to a central pump station, and then that's actually a force main. That's pumped, not gravity to that.
So there is going to be a pump located somewhere back there?
Yes. So there are centralized pump stations that receive the wastewater in each community, and then it is pumped to the receiving location in the existing sewers.
Okay, and then the mains that you're running, both in the first phase and the second phase, are they going to be on the shoulder of the road? Are they going to be in right-of-ways?
They would all be in the public right-of-way as far as possible. One of the things that Ken did mention is where there is an opportunity to achieve cost savings and the homeowners are amenable, to look at easements for sewer main across private property, where that becomes a more cost-effective solution. If we have a lot of homes where the roadway is up high and the home is down low, but we can drain through the backyard, say, and come out a little bit lower and join a gravity main that way, that is more cost-effective. It does require there to be a public sewer main on private property and therefore would require an easement.
And then do they typically restore the property once they're done, or?
Yes, certainly. Restoring the property and minimizing the impact to the homeowner is a key focus of the design, yes.
Okay.
And monies have been allocated for that.
Yes, that's included in the cost of the project, yes.
So, walking around, just pertaining to Lake Lincolndale, it's quite obvious where we saw the bloom start this year, which was down at the bottom of Larch, Myrtle, Nymph, Orange, all the roads pretty much on the north side of the lake. And what are they incorporating? You're talking about storm drains, correct? And that's going into the sewer?
Stormwater would not go into the sanitary sewer.
Okay, so we're basically going to have, again, I don't want to speak for Mike, he's not here tonight, but it seemed to be the biggest problem we had in Lake Lincolndale was runoff from lawns and perhaps dry wells, so we're not really seem to be, trying to resolve that issue. And from what I understand, the bacteria counts weren't even measurable in the lake. So again, I'm asking, it doesn't seem to be, the septic seem to be the issue. It seems to be the runoff from the lawn. So we're not addressing any of that, I guess. And I can tell you, walking around the lake, because I walk a couple times a week around there, you can see where the green water is running off of lawns. And I can tell you, I'm in charge of the boats. They got to be tagged, and we have certain procedures that got to be followed. So I'm down at the lake a lot, and I don't know if you've been out there to look at it, but you can see what the issue is. To me, it doesn't appear to be septics.
So the $10 million that was allocated by DEP for these communities was specifically targeted for sanitary sewer infrastructure improvements. And so that's using that money to help get the district started and to build that momentum. At the same time, the town is looking, they've just recently completed a project in Lake Shenorock to install stormwater separation units on some of the outfalls to treat the stormwater runoff. That was funded through New York State DEC WQIP grant, and we've are in the process of applying for a similar grant for a similar project in Lake Lincolndale as well. And so as part of the three-pronged approach of addressing the wastewater and stormwater impacts to the lake.
I guess the obvious question is why wouldn't we do that first if our lake management knows that that's what the issue is, and everybody that lives in the lake knows what the issue is. So we seem to be taking it on the tail end instead of directly taking care of what the issue is, which is runoff from lawns. It's not septics. The bacteria count isn't even measurable. Wouldn't I don't know. You guys are the experts. It just seems to me if we know what the problem is, we should rectify that before we go after the secondary problem.
Yeah, I think it is all a part of one big picture. You are getting nutrients, even if the bacteria isn't quite getting there, just because of the vegetation adjacent to the lake and other reasons. I think the sewer aspect of this, although it feels like it's coming lately, is 30 years in the making at this point. And there's, I think, a narrow window of opportunity to be able to use the money that's been allocated by DEP for sewering of these lake communities before another community with momentum calls dibs on those unused funds. So the historic hurdle to getting sewers in these communities, which has been at the county level, there's been a window of opportunity that's opened there, combined with other municipalities gaining momentum with their own sewer projects and coming with tens of millions of dollars in additional funding needs there too. Now is the time for this. So certainly it has to be a holistic approach to addressing water quality, not just sanitary sewers, but also stormwater improvements as well. And I know the town is looking at that holistic approach as well. This is just a timing matter for this project that has to happen, in addition to a project that will make measurable impact to water quality.
One other question, the $184, I didn't understand that. Until you're hooked up, you pay $140 and you get pumped out. Is that yearly or every 3 years?
So that $184 is uniform across all properties, right? Or is that on an ad valorem? That's on assessed value. So that does vary a little bit with the home assessment. That is paid essentially to the county for capital improvements that they have at their Peekskill wastewater treatment plant. All homes and businesses that are within the county's broader sewer district that has wastewater treated at the Peekskill wastewater treatment plant pay a share of that finance cost for those improvements. So by virtue of becoming part of the county sewer district, that fee is also then applied to the homes in Shenorock and in Lincolndale. The county recognizes that not all homes actually benefit from what's being paid there if you're not actually connected to the sewer. And so they have a reimbursement program where you can get your septic tank pumped out every 2 years and submit those receipts to the county, and they'll reimburse the cost of that in exchange for the fee that you're paying to be a part of their sewer district, but not actually sending any wastewater to the wastewater treatment plant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, a question I wanted to ask you is the work that was done at Shannon Rock to capture some of that runoff, as the gentleman was saying, and we've applied for grants to do that. Do we have any, we did that fairly quickly, it seemed. Would we imagine that if we get that, we would be able to do that before the sewer work or concurrent with it? Do you have any idea if those grants come through, what the plan would be, the timeline would be?
I think that it would proceed on a similar timeline. Obviously, it has to go through surveying and engineering and permitting and all of that. But I would think that the town would move forward as quickly as it could in making use of those funds as soon as they were available, yes. So that would be, and it all depends on when the town is successful in obtaining grants for that work. But it certainly could be concurrent with the sewer work happening, yes. And so to the extent that there could be economies of scale, if that's your question of while we
Yes,
have
that's what I'm getting
yellow
at.
iron mobilized at the site,
Right.
absolutely. That to the extent that that could that we could achieve economies of scale by doing so, we of course would seek to do that.
And we know, and I would imagine that when we know what sorts of funding we have and those engineering plans are drawn up, that we would then make every effort to maximize that to get the economies of scale, as you say.
That's the approach that has been taken in the phasing of this project as well, is as long as there is funding available, we should be implementing it and making use of it.
Yeah.
There's been obviously $10 million sitting in an account for a while that we'd like to make use of.
Definitely.
And every additional dollar of grant funding that comes in, including this year's WIA grant application, if the town is successful in that, would go towards phase 1 of this project and continuing to expand that.
Is there anything that could be done to stopgap or mitigate what he's saying is occurring before you go into a larger project? Somebody go out and take a look at what's going on there.
Yeah, I think we will certainly get together with the highway department and the town and continue to look at that. Yes.
I mean, that's that's imminent, right?
Certainly.
And it's interrupting a situation there that the lake is used quite a bit during during that season. I mean, my family used to go to that lake, and that's a great spot in the community.
It certainly is.
So I had a couple questions about the easements. So a property sits above a house that's in phase 1, and they're willing to give an easement to that person above them to connect to the, now, would that be allowed under phase 1? And if you had more of those, the more you had would reduce contributions as well?
I think to the...
That's phase 1 of the question.
Yes.
Phase 2 is, I know we've had, public hearing last month. August 20th, we had a community meeting. So I'm just curious, how many of the property owners in that situation have said they are interested in pursuing a request to be part of it?
So we've had 6 or 7 specific to exactly that issue. And I think that during the detailed design phase, which happens after the town decides to form a district, if it so decides, we would evaluate all of those opportunities at that point and do, our strategy is to do as much as we can within the funds that are provided. So as many homes as can be connected in a logical way in phase 1 with the $10 million that exists, plus any additional that can be done in a logical way with any additional grant funds that are provided at the time of phase 1.
Okay, good.
Hi. Although I'm short. Hi, I'm Stephanie McQuaid Geiger. I live in Lake Lincolndale. I actually have 2 lots, 11 Iris Road and 12 Olive. And our house is on 11 Iris. And so the way the plans are, we would be hooked up from our home. But my question is, would there be the ability to build on our second lot and then later connect into the sewer? Or are those second lots that are very common in our neighborhood going to be grandfathered in to prevent more density of the homeowners in our district?
So the DEP funds cannot be applied to undeveloped parcels. So that's an explicit provision of DEP funding. Once the sewer is there, to the extent that it is a buildable lot and complies with zoning code, and you would go through the process of applying for site plan approval, the district would also then need to be expanded to include that undeveloped parcel. The district only includes developed parcels at this time. So there would be a multi-step process, but as long as that petition to expand the district is accepted by the town and the county, and subsequent to a site plan approval, it's possible.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Other, yes.
Hi, I'm Barbara Marino. I live at 29 Old Mill Road. I have a couple of questions. Some of my neighbors couldn't come tonight, so they asked me some things. I know there's a time frame, if all goes as planned, that construction would be starting in 2021. We're on my block, we're on the 2A phase in Shinnorock. The question is how long do you think it would take to get them hooked up? And the reason I'm asking is a couple of my neighbors think they might need to have to put a lot of money into the current septic, and trying to figure out, can they, is it something they can, stay a little bit with without causing damage, or should, if they put all this money into a new septic and then whatever, 6 months later they're hooked up and now there's, so that's my question. My first question is around there.
So the extension of sewers and installation of them beyond phase 1 is contingent on being able to finance that and keep the costs to within what's in the map plan and report. And so that means that there would need to be additional grant funds or other funds that would need to become available to the town, so it's not financing all of the cost. That's not the plan. So it's difficult to give a precise timeline on it because it depends on external parties and external
So
funding.
if you go by, so the phase 1, when do you think those would be all hooked up and completed? Because it says here construction might, would take place in 2020 if all went as planned, where we approved it. Like when would the funding be looked to be like right away looking for more funding, or waiting for that to be completed?
No, that anytime funding application is available, the town intends to make use of it and to continue its dialogue with funding partners at New York City DEP, with the New York City Environmental Facilities Corporation, with Westchester County and others as applicable, any way that we can find funds to help minimize the amount that's financed, to keep the costs within the map plan and report. We're pursuing those actively. The town is pursuing those actively as those come up.
So if it lands up taking a while to get the funding, it could take a while before the 2A phase to go in there, which means before they talked about that amount of money that we would be paying because we're in the sewer district, but then we would get some money back to get our own septics pumped out. But for the people who might have to change it, you don't really have a time frame. They might have to put the money into it to have to not be used in a couple of years.
Obviously, avoiding a violation of health code, I'm sure, is their priority. That's what and I guess afterwards, it would be helpful to know which properties you think, kind of off the record.
I'll let them know.
So as not to involve the health department.
Yeah. No,
That's always helpful for us to know where there are issues in the community.
Okay. And then that was from other things because I don't have that issue, but I know I think it was in the Somers record when there was some pros and cons. Besides the water quality, it talked about like expansions or building on your property, right? Because now there's some limitations because of where your septics are. And last year I went through putting a new detached garage in, and I had to deal with being so many feet away from the septic and then from the fields, and it required me to go through a whole process. if I'm hooked up, or except if anybody's hooked up, then is there a lot less limitations then? Because right now you had to be so many feet from here and so many feet from there, and otherwise you had to deal with getting health department approval, which I didn't go down that route. I just basically moved the garage. But it said that would be a benefit there, but how is that? Is it you can go over the piping then? You don't have to worry about being so many feet away from it?
So certainly, while you have a septic system, you're subject to the health department codes around that. And there are setbacks to sanitary sewer. We actually don't want to be right on top of that sanitary sewer for good engineering and building practice. This project does not change the underlying zoning restrictions, but so setbacks from side yards, front yards, heights. It doesn't change any of the other environmental limitations, setbacks from wetlands, things like that. But to the extent that the only limitation to something might have been a setback from a septic, then that would obviously not apply anymore.
Okay. So when the designing phase, because of where my septic is, if for some reason I thought I wanted to expand on my property, is it worth, like, if I don't want it exactly where my current septic is, like if it was not in a great opportunity, one gentleman said it was in his front lawn, that wouldn't impede me. Mine's kind of on the side, but is that something the residents would have a say in potentially on where it would go? So if I thought I was going to expand, I don't go do that and then go, oh, if I had moved it 20 feet, I would have been fine. Because I have 3 lots, so I have some leniency on my property.
So during the design phase, we would be working with each individual homeowner to understand where the best point of connection is.
Okay.
And I think our intention is to be as reasonable as possible within good sense. We can't add a lot of cost to it by doing something crazy. If there's a straight route for access, the intent is to connect to the existing lateral that leaves the house, probably right about where the existing septic tank is. If it makes sense to move it a couple of feet left or right, I think we would look to do so where it makes common sense to do that.
Okay.
But it has to be within reason.
Yeah, no, and then I could work with my plumber too to see if there's some before then on seeing there's a way to have it come out just a little different way.
Exactly.
Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Anyone else for comment? We'll go back there and then you, sir.
Hi, Luann Oakley, Orchard Drive in Lake Shannon. Are there additional amps to run these pumps? Like if a house has 220 amps, do they have to upgrade their ampage in their home to run these pumps?
Not typically. Each home is likely different, but this likely would not be the highest drawing device in the house. So like an electric dryer could potentially be a higher load, depending. It depends on the individual house, but it's more than likely that an electrical upgrade would not be required if there's room within the electrical panel.
And typically, what might be done if there's not any spare space left in the panel would be installing a couple of half-height breakers to provide additional space. But we're looking at another 20 amp breaker, essentially. And then it's a smaller breaker in the grinder pump panel so that will trip before we trip the main breaker at the panel. And you'll get an alarm at that point.
So that would be an additional cost to the homeowner to put those extra breakers in if that's necessary?
That would be included for the grinder pumps, would include that electrical connection, so it would cover that cost for that breaker.
And these pumps?
Sorry, if there was some, for example, an older type of electrical panel, fuses or something like that, that may need to be upgraded separately. That would be outside of the project cost.
So the pumps, are they a standard size pump for all homes, or are they based on the amount of bedrooms in each home?
It's a standard size pump for each home. And so that then allows the town to maintain identical spare pumps. And so if there is ever an issue with with one of the pumps, again, you have 2 pumps in each grinder pump, so you have that redundancy. And then if there is a failure, it's a simple pull and replace the pump and then take it off site for service.
Is each homeowner going to have to provide you with the diagrams of their septic system and fields for you to do this work, dig these trenches so you know where everything is underground?
Yep. As-built and existing information, as much as is available, is certainly helpful. Part of the process of design does include going out and reaching out to the individual property owners, meeting them on site, walking through, understanding, okay, here's where the septic tank is, here's where the fields are, to be able to design that connection.
And one other question. Many years ago, we had a very bad storm called Floyd. We had a lot of flooding. What happens to these sort of systems when you have flooding like that? Do they back up into the homeowner's cellar?
So the in terms of flooding, the system is sealed from groundwater infiltration. That's the advantage, as well as a new gravity sewer system has very limited infiltration, so wouldn't expect backups as caused by flooding.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. As opposed to a septic tank where, it's potentially, if that's sitting at a low point, underwater, could be filling in, flood out the septic system.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Yes, sir.
I'm Scott Abrams from 8 Greenwood Drive in Lincolndale. I'm also the vice president on our board. So for each homeowner to connect from their home to the main, it hasn't been mentioned the costs associated with that. What are the approximate costs? I understand some people's connection will be further from the right-of-way than others, so you can't give anything specific, but what would be the average cost per homeowner to actually connect to the system?
The cost for connection of the home to the sewer is included in the total project cost.
It is, okay.
Yes.
What,
for phase one.
what about the additional phases?
For all phases, it's in the total project cost that is in the map plan and report.
Okay.
In phase one, all of that is grant funding. In future phases, it would be a combination of grant and financing.
What costs would be associated with shutting down or ending usage of the septic systems?
The abandonment of the septic system, which typically includes filling in the septic tank itself, and Westchester County procedures for abandoning the septic field is essentially to allow it to remain in place. Those costs are also within the total project cost.
So that would be paid for by the project?
That's correct.
Not by the homeowner?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further comments?
Joe Luciano, 10 Walker Drive. You mentioned the lots aren't included. This is to the town board. So somebody gains the use of their lot because they didn't have use before, whether it was a well or septic. Or is there going to be a buy-in for them if they apply? Well, this is the board. You're the town. It doesn't have to do with them.
Buy-in for what?
Okay, say somebody has a lot and they can't build on it because they're blocked, whether by well, that they can't put a septic system in. Is there going to be it's going to cost us, so is there going to be a buy-in for them? Because you're not including lots in the cost.
Yeah, if the district has borrowed money, then the town has its own buy-in system that's in place for all your districts.
Yeah.
So it would be applicable there too.
You actually have one of those tonight for the water district.
Right, you have an example with the
So I'm saying
North
is-
County homes.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the answer?
Yes.
So is it going to be put in the system so it brings the cost down? Is that that's what I'm trying to get at?
Let me just ask a question, though. The funding can't be used for unused parcels, the grant money.
Right. That's correct.
So,
But he's talking about buy-ins.
but at
But there
some
are no
later
vacant,
date,
there are no vacant parcels included in the district.
exactly.
So If a vacant parcel wants to come in at a later date,
Yes,
they will have to
Buy it.
petition to extend.
yes.
And then if the town has in fact borrowed money at that juncture, then there will be a buy-in fee.
You just said that before, right?
Yeah, but I
Just
think,
use that
I think
example.
what Joe was asking, if a number of those come in, is that gonna reduce the overall, contribution of
Is that what you're
everyone in the
asking?
district?
It'll reduce the
Potentially.
debt. It'll reduce the
Spread it.
debt.
So I'm just,
It'll
in
reduce
other
the debt
words,
service, so everyone will
let's
pay
just
it
say
back.
there's somebody who has a lot and they can't build on it. And 3 years go by and it costs somebody else $6,000. What's going to be the buy-in for the person who actually gets the advantage?
There is a formula that the superintendent uses to go back and recapture those who come in at a later date for the original cost associated with the district.
Okay. You have where you keep saying about the smaller lots. How come Horton Estates is not included? They border the body of waters. They are on small lots. They're all wet. Just curious.
They're not in the R10 zone.
Okay. All right. How many board members are actually going to end up being in this form sewer district?
Not me, but if they ever want to give me sewer and water,
I would
I'll
love
take
to
it
do
tomorrow.
it.
Yeah,
I'll
I got
take it. Well,
news.
bring it on over to Hillside.
So, so no board member is going to end up in the
You
district.
don't live there.
Okay. How come this isn't a resident vote?
Sounds like a legal question.
Oh.
Roland?
The formation of the district is subject to what's called a permissive referendum. If the residents wanted to bring on a vote of the proposed district resident owners, there is a process that they could do that.
But at no time, no one here has brought that up.
Well, when they get to the point of a resolution, it says it right in the resolution that it is subject to the approval of the state controller and subject to permissive referendum, and notices would then go in the newspaper advertising that the resolution establishing the district was subject to permissive referendum. We're just not there yet.
So when does that happen?
After the town board considers establishing the district.
So Thursday after the 12th, that notice will be published.
Okay, so how do people vote on it then?
If people wanted to bring on a referendum, the town clerk will have available petitions that have to be circulated, and if enough resident owners decide to sign that petition, then the town would have to schedule a special election.
Okay. All right. Osborne Court on Lakeview Drive. All 4 residents want to be in?
I represent myself.
Oh, okay. I thought you mentioned that all 4 wanted to come in?
No, he just said
3.
6 or 7 people have asked.
I'd like to be the 3 that get out. I don't have a small lot. I'm at the top of your tax assessment. And what I'd really like to know is why, when you established the boards in the school, with a simple spreadsheet, you could have put everyone's cost with their assessed value. But you seem to hit that 1,200 mark, which most people are going to be over.
Those numbers are available.
The
in the
total
map
of
and plan
all.
report.
I'm sorry.
Right, go ahead. Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, I didn't mean to speak over. All the home values and their associated fees are in the map plan and report. That 1,200 is an average, and when we looked at the median, it's pretty much right there as well. So as many would be under as would be over.
So if you go out on the website and go into the section for, this project,
Right.
maybe about 4 items up is a map and plan report. You go out to the map and plan report, it's details everything that's being done here. In the back, you'll see every house in Shenorock and Lincolndale listed with the estimated, tax cost for that. So you'll see the 1,200, you'll see some 1,200, you'll see some 500, you'll see some over that, 1,800, 2,000.
Okay.
So you'll be able to locate your property there.
Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question about that? You've mentioned several times that it's based upon the market value of the home. You said it could be used by the assessed value, used by our assessor, or the market value. Why use the market value and not the assessed value in the assessor's office? I'm just wondering.
There's a fixed ratio between the two, and the market value is what the county uses. And so since we're also part of the county district.
Do they mandate that, or simply for consistency?
I don't know if they mandate that. We're using it for consistency with that, but there wouldn't be any difference between the two because there's a multiplier to get from one to the other.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying is everybody looks at your tax bill and say, here's what I'm assessed at, which is not your market value. And, you know, it is a bit easier that way, but, you know, that makes sense what you're saying.
Yeah, but it's what the assessment, it's the market value that's shown by the assessment.
Correct.
It's not necessarily what the home is worth.
So it's taking the assessment, dividing it by.
Someone asked me that, so well, does my market value change then from year to year? How do they know that? But it's based upon the assessed value translated
With
into.
the equalization rate
Gotcha.
to get to.
Okay, that clarifies
What the
it.
town theoretically thinks the property's worth.
Yes, I understand now. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay. We haven't heard from this gentleman yet. Go ahead.
Jay Batchelor on Ross Drive, back to easements. There are 7 of us right here that were in the original plan that would all profit from gravity through our neighbors in back
Okay,
of
if
us.
you could back on the mic, please. Thanks.
There are 7 of us on Ross Drive that were originally in the plan in phase 1, and we're all with gravity down through our neighbors if you could get us the easement. But right now, we're not in one. If we don't get the easement prior to the building of one, we're looking to retrench entirely through their yard instead of joining their trench. So it's just something I hope y'all will think about.
Yeah, certainly comment noted. For the purposes of the map plan and report, we didn't want to be presumptuous and assume that any homeowner would give us an easement through a backyard. But to the extent that that's a possibility and allows, we're looking to connect as many homes as possible within the funding available in phase 1.
You could save
He's
something on the
interested.
order
How are
of.
you going to process those
We
requests?
would be working with the individual homeowners and working through that with the town and their attorney during detailed design.
But I would imagine the detailed design, you're going to be in phase 1, and then somebody potentially contiguous to them.
Yes.
So you're going to go talk to those people as well?
We have to be thoughtful about where we're reaching out to make sure that we're capturing as much as possible if the
Okay.
town decides to move
So
forward.
he's saying he would have talked to you.
Ken agrees that we could save something on the order of $70,000 with not using grinder pumps and 80 foot of trenching as opposed to maybe 180 foot and going through walls to get up to our street. So there'd be substantial saving for y'all. And I'm just curious about the petition. How many signatures would you require to put it to a referendum?
It's, I believe, 5% of those in the proposed district, or 100 parcels, whichever is fewer.
Whichever's greater?
Whichever is fewer.
But say again?
Whichever is fewer, less.
Smaller number.
Whichever's fewer. Okay, so that'd be 5%. Thank you.
And Roland, on that, we discussed this once, we're talking about park districts for something else. And that there had to be a certain number based upon the number of parcels and a percentage of the assessed value, but that would not be part of a permissive referendum.
That doesn't apply for what we're doing here.
Right, thanks.
Okay. Yes, sir.
I know you probably answered it, but I didn't understand it. So I'm from Lake Lincolndale, and let's just say there's, rough estimate, there's about 100 undeveloped parcels. And it's important to note that I believe it's supposed to be 100 feet on level ground from septic to water. More if it's on a grade. I'm not sure what the grade is. So there are quite a bit of properties in Lake Lincolndale that are going to now be buildable. So I know they're not included in this phase, but when they join, let's just say now, because it's obvious there's going to be houses springing up all over once you bring in sewer. So does that decrease everybody's price that's already hooked up?
Yeah.
So the district formation right now does not include any undeveloped parcels.
Correct.
So future parcels, if they wanted to connect, would have to petition to do so. And there would be a buy-in, as the prior gentleman asked. But obviously, part of that buy-in is to offset the financing that's been incurred, that's been applied to all the other homeowners that have benefited. So when you're dividing a number by a larger number, it gets smaller.
So if there's, I believe there's 400 and something houses now in Lake Lincolndale, and off the top of my head, I would say there's probably 100 undeveloped woods and properties. So that would be roughly 25%. That price would, if they were to be approved to join the sewer, that would roughly be a 25% reduction in what that $1,200 average.
The sewer district includes parcels in both Lincolndale and Somers, so there's 1,000, just about 980, 985 parcels overall. So it wouldn't be a 25% reduction, but correspondingly less.
Other than that,
Steve,
I'm sorry, yes, please.
Those vacant parcels to connect would have to fund their own connection, correct?
Correct.
The town would not be providing that.
Yeah, that's the point he was trying to get at, I think. You'll have to fund the connection, where in this project.
The property owner would.
Yeah, the new property owner would.
well, the size of the houses that they would be
Yeah.
able to build now, I would think.
Of course, it would
to
be all
build
part of the same.
It would all be worked into it, because now we're gonna have
course.
mansions in
Of
the
course.
lake, as not what we have now. Are there any other question is you mentioned 5% or 100 property owners to get the referendum ball rolling. Would that be in both Shenorock and Lincolndale, or would that be phase
The entire
2A, or?
district. The entire district.
Okay. All right, and what was the number, 1,000?
985.
All right, thank you.
In the map and plan report, there's there's total parcels and then parcels. So there's 985 parcels, right? I think there's probably 1,300 total parcels, something like that.
On that order of
On
magnitude.
that order. So you can get the exact number in that report.
Any further comments? Okay, seeing and hearing no one else, I'll make a motion to continue the public hearing to September 12th.
And then I need a motion to add these properties tonight, or?
Yes, that would be great. The 3 properties that have been identified, you should just pass a simple resolution instructing the engineers to add them to the proposed district.
Okay. And we have the exact properties listed somewhere.
Do I have to say the exact properties?
Right, so we have a motion.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved.
One question, that obviously for some people, the amount of money we're talking about, $100 a month, is that's hard for some people. Have we looked for any other ways, or has the state offered any other ways for senior citizens or veterans or any other types of groups, or based upon simply income, to soften that in any way? Because the state certainly wants to, as the federal government wants to, is to increase the use of sewers and water purification. It's good for everybody. But, different people have different circumstances. We don't know of any of those.
I'm not personally aware. We do have dedicated grant and funding specialists within our firm, and so I'll bring that question to them to make sure that
Do you happen to know if they are going tomorrow to Hyde Park, where there is a presentation by Senator Gillibrand's office about that, where I am going? I was just wondering.
We will be represented at that
You will
meeting.
be?
Absolutely, yes.
All right, good.
As will I.
Oh, you'll be there too?
And our planner and our engineering
What time's
department.
the bus going? Because it saved me a drive.
7:45 out here. Jump in the Volt.
Oh,
that'll be tight then.
Ron, I have one other question. People are talking about getting plumbers to do certain hookups, I guess, right? They have to. Would there be anything that would prohibit the town from engaging in some sort of a Costco mass buying RFP to put them all into, which a person wouldn't have to take, they'd get their own plumber, but that might be at a lower level. We do that with our home heating oil program, where you can go into that and get a lower. Would that be something that we could consider to help the homeowner?
What I saw, what I've seen is the town simply putting together a list of vendors, plumbers who agreed to a certain price structure, and then distributing that and letting people pick from among the list.
And they would have the same price.
Yeah, that if they chose to be on that list, they would agree to a certain price, and that would avoid the town having to go out to proposal and bid. You just would be being a conduit for a list of plumbers.
How would we determine that price? Would it be
Well, the engineers could help you with that, I'm sure.
I'm just trying to get them to bargain against each other, you know. So you want to be on that list, you got to be at that bottom price here.
Again, I think that's what you would do. You'd get the price from the engineers.
Oh, of the best possible price, and that becomes
and
if you want to be on that list.
If you want to be on the list, you got to meet that
Okay,
price.
that could help
we do
people.
a public notice?
No, you would just you'd send out a notice to a group of plumbers. Here's the price. If you're interested on being on the preferred list, let us know. And then you would just distribute that to the residents, and then they can decide if they want to use one of those plumbers.
Right.
Or they want to use their own plumber.
Yeah, people want the choice, sure. Well, that might be a way we can help.
But that's a ways down the road.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
So just, have we closed the public hearing?
We did.
To be
We adjourned it, we didn't close it.
Adjourned it, right, there you go.
Will you two guys be back next week? Ooh, return engagement.
Indeed. All right, our next item on the agenda is public comment. I'll make a motion to open public comment.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved?
Do we want to take 5 minutes while people leave, or?
No.
Okay.
Is anyone here for public comment? This is for any other comment other than what's on the agenda. Seeing and hearing no one, I'll make a motion to close.
Oh, gentlemen.
Yes, sir.
Jay Batchelor, Ross Drive, just on the taxes, won't the STAR program apply to this? Isn't this just an erasing of our town tax or county tax?
School taxes is STAR.
The STAR program would not apply to this
No.
1,200?
It's only for school tax.
School taxes.
The STAR
Only
program
applies-
does not apply to the school program.
Only
Only
school
school
taxes. Only school taxes. It's a reimbursement of the school taxes.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and I got it backwards. Never mind.
No, that's your-
You know, it's better that way.
Yeah, it is. That's your biggest number, so that's what you
It's the
want it to
biggest
apply
one.
to.
It's better that way, yeah.
Okay, I'll make a motion to close public comment.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, our next agenda item is the New Dawn Family Resource Center discussion. Just as a reminder, this is a program that was brought to Northern Westchester. It has to do with Domestic Violence Counseling Center, which was established in a location in Northern Westchester to serve victims of domestic violence. And we've circulated a report since they've been up and operating. And I guess to the credit of our police department participation and identifying people at risk, Somers unfortunately leads the list of people who've been served. But one respect, we're finding out about them and we're giving them service. So this, what we're asking for this evening's discussion is the town had contributed $5,000 for renting the space they're currently in. And I would propose that we continue to donate that $5,000 since we are definitely taking advantage of that service.
I don't think there's any
Completely
question.
No, this
agree,
is-
money well
All right,
spent.
so we'll continue that to the consensus agenda.
Yeah, this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's, even we can agree on this.
Just, just a comment on that, though, on the 38 that we have in the report. I mean, we're the largest town. We have 20,000 people.
That too.
And if you take something like North Salem that has 8 in this census,
Proportionately, yeah.
proportionately, I mean, that was the first thing I looked at. But I think, we talked to the
Are
chief
you a numbers
and so
guy,
on,
Tony?
we'll get some idea as to what's happening between those, in those numbers.
Well, our chief really, more or less dedicated a police officer to it who's done a phenomenal job and, really just bought into the whole program, which is great.
Yeah, no, she's really embraced it. Okay, number 2 on the agenda would be refer the proposed comprehensive plan update amendments and the draft local law for the proposed zoning amendment for the new private school in Somers on the former IBM property to the town of Somers Planning Board and the Westchester County Planning Board. Now, is that something we should move to?
Next week.
Next week,
If you
okay.
read your memo.
Okay. We'll move that to the consensus agenda. I mean, moving that tonight doesn't expedite.
I'm just reading her memo here. Both draft documents are attached for consideration of referral by the town board as of its work session September 5th and actual refer at its meeting of September 12th.
That's fine.
So if
Okay.
you want to do
You know-
it today, let's do it today.
Yeah, I make a motion to propose, to move it
Refer it.
along.
Yeah,
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
So what we're doing is we're taking the documents, the zoning documents and the planning documents, we're referring them out to the committees and
With the draft.
town, yeah, right, and they're gonna come back to us with comments, right?
Right, because
And
we're amending our master plan,
It's
right?
this,
Yes.
it's
Yes.
this draft local laws.
We're updating our master plan, I guess, right, because,
Yeah, it's an amendment.
Yeah, not
Update
up,
amendment.
we just updated it. This is,
well,
Okay, item 3 is award the bid to Kennel Maintenance Corporation for office building cleaning services in the amount of $45,242 and authorize supervisor to execute a contract per memo dated August 23rd from Thomas J. Tuma, Junior Building Inspector. So I'd like to make a motion to award the bid.
Okay.
question,
Yeah.
we're accepting the bid. Do all the departments know how we're proceeding with this? Are they gonna find out tomorrow? Or, the reason I ask is we have one department, the police department, which, they're a little bit different than the other places. You don't want somebody going in by themselves. There has to be a police officer there and all that. I'm just curious.
Well, during this bidding process, each of these departments are approached,
Okay.
so they'll learn about it. I mean, our job is to maintain our facilities.
Yeah, I know, but I just want to make sure that
Yeah.
I know in the past they had somebody who stuck to a schedule, always came when they were supposed to, and this past run through, the last company we're using didn't always do that, and you'd have people hanging around and waiting, because, that building
And
is...
that's one reason we're going through this process
Right,
again.
okay, so the
if this
intent
person-
is to have these people, okay, good.
So,
But
yeah,
they've started
They've already started?
September 1st.
That's what it says here.
Oh, okay, I see, yeah, memo dated, okay.
okay.
No, they need to start September 1st, so.
So we're giving them a tryout.
Everybody's aware that they're gone.
They're there now, okay, good. All right.
Asked and answered. Okay, I'm waiting for a second on that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then we have a petition to extend and join the Amawak Shanrock Water District to 3 Cardinal Way. 3 Cardinal Way has a desire to get water into their water system. So would we move this to consensus?
I'm sorry,
You have to adopt an order setting
We're
the
gonna
date
leave
for
that
and
on,
we
we're
had-
gonna leave that on for next week.
for next meeting.
You're gonna discuss any discussion and then we're gonna adopt the order next week with a roll call.
Okay.
Well, would there be any reason why we wouldn't want to do that? I mean, it increases the number of participants, spreads out costs, and they have to pay the
Oh,
buy-in.
yeah, and I think your water superintendent says he's got the capacity, so
Yeah.
there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah.
So the connection's picked up by the homeowner, is that
Right.
the idea? Yeah.
Right. But they have to buy in because
Right.
people have been.
Right,
They've been paying, right?
right, so they buy
Yeah,
in,
we,
and then the
I
cost.
remember we had a young gentleman in here a number of years ago from Horton Estates that was buying into the.
Yeah, it's happened, yeah.
Okay, so we'll move that to
That's fine.
next
We're gonna
week.
leave it.
Okay, personnel. Current vacancies on Affordable Housing, Partisan Prevention, Zoning Board of Appeals. We have an upcoming vacancy on the Assessment Board of Review. And have to accept the resignation of Mr. Dennis Drogan as our Assistant Building Inspector in the Building Department, effective August 23rd.
Dennis, we hardly knew you.
Yeah, he submitted his letter of resignation, and
Quick.
a week later, he was gone. Okay,
We want to put,
yeah, do you want to make a motion on our police matter?
yeah, I guess I'll make the motion that in the police department, we promote Tom Fulton from police officer to sergeant, effective immediately.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Yeah, Officer Fulton, outstanding officer. He's really done a lot in the short time he's been here.
We're lucky in this town. We have a bunch of really, really good officers. You know, they do a great job.
True. Proposed consensus agenda, items 1 and 2. Any questions or issues regarding that?
No.
There are no parking signs in Lake Shannerock. Is that something we do, that's a change? That's not a yearly?
Well, since we did that improvement, that storm.
Oh, around there, right.
Now there's this
Yeah.
path.
Right, I was thinking of Lincolndale, right,
Oh,
right.
yeah, so, yeah, these are not gonna be pedestal ones. We're gonna have like nice brown, ground level, no parking. They don't wanna park
Talking
on
about
the.
signs.
No,
The
no,
grass we
we
just-
don't want them to, right? Yeah, okay, I got you.
Oh, okay.
All right, we come to the favorite part of our meeting,
Yeah,
where we have
What's that?
announcements.
that's what people
Shall we
wait
give our-
the end?
for.
Um,
I need the chili cook-off.
okay, let's see, will we celebrate Summers?
If you run through those, you might make it.
We will, we're gonna make it. Family Forum Festival. pass that down.
Right.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Tony,
I'll go first.
okay, go ahead, shoot.
So this Saturday, September 7th, if you've been living under a rock, you might not know about it, but September 7th, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m., it's the annual Celebrate Somers in Somers Town Center, right over here behind the Chicos. There's going to be kids' activities, food trucks, live music, dancers, games and prizes, entertainment for all. Enjoy a day of Somers family fun. Participate in exciting family activities, meet and greet with local businesses. A great day to celebrate our beloved town. Rain or shine. I believe the weather report indicates shine.
Yes, it does.
Which is good. And just for people who might be driving over there, the main road in the town center will be closed all day from the CVS over to Sterling Bank over at the end. So hope to see everybody there. I know we'll be there on and off all day.
Yep,
So good stuff.
here.
Okay, so on Saturday, September 28th, between 9 o'clock and 2 p.m., it's going to be e-waste recycling day. The Somers Litters Task Force has arranged this. It's going to be at the city carding expansion lot. And I want to say this used to be in the
Middle school.
the middle school parking lot. So I want to make a point that this is at the city carding expansion lot on 235 Route 100. You know, essentially what they're going to be doing here is they're going to be collecting old electronics, appliances, computer equipment, keyboards and monitors, data cabling, washers, dryers, TVs. Scrap metal is welcome also. So when I've seen this done in the past, I mean, a lot of people show up and they get rid of a lot of
They have a real
big
process
items.
when they do it too. They got the guys
Right.
wrapping them in plastic, and
Exactly.
they do a nice job.
So again, 9 to 2 p.m., September 28th. There's a $5 per car donation, and that's going to go to the Somers Litters Task Force. And it's going to be on Route 100 at the city carding expansion lot.
All right, so that's e-waste. On the same day, there's a household recycling fall drop-off day. This is run by the county, and it's at FDR Park on the 28th. It's going to run from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. at FDR State Park in Yorktown. And the household recycling fall drop-off would contain properly labeled household chemicals, most automotive fluids, flammable liquids, metal, furniture polishes, pesticides, fire extinguisher, fluorescent lights, mercury thermometers, unused pharmaceuticals, and rechargeable batteries. What's not accepted are oil, paint, compressed gas cylinders, smoke fire detector. This is a shocker. Explosives are not accepted at this event. Medical waste, materials from business and schools. So,
Wait, can you have that one?
had that stuff.
He needs this for his refrigerator.
Yeah, do, so I remember.
If you had that stuff,
Really explosive.
avail yourself of being able to recycle it. Richard.
We all know next Wednesday is the 18th anniversary of 9/11, and there will be a celebration in Somers for those who are wondering. I saw one of the newspapers today had a rundown of all the towns that are having ceremonies. This was not included, but it's at 6:30 next Wednesday, September 11th, at Bailey Park, the site of the Somers Unity Garden, and it is organized by the Somers Historical Society, and it's a remembrance ceremony, and you might see in the park there a Somers Unity Garden, which was dedicated September 11, 2002, and it says on it, in peaceful remembrance of the sacrifice of our loved ones during the tragic events of September 11, 2001, and of those who continue to sacrifice for the enduring ideals of freedom. And you might know that we did lose 3 firefighters on that day at 9/11, and I'm sure everybody has a personal connection in some way to that day. So it's always, a day that will never be forgotten. So that's next Wednesday, 6:30 at Bailey Park. On Sunday, September 15th at Reese Park, if you are hungry, come to the 3rd annual Chili Chick Cook-Off by the Somers Education Foundation. So that's at Reese Park Pavilion from 11 to 3 or until the chili runs out. And they have to make, there's 6 teams, I think, of it. And they have to make, 5 gallons of chili or something like that? It's a huge amount. Yeah.
I'll ask my team captain, how much do you have to make?
Let's see, about 3 pounds.
Well, it's gallons. All I know is it's gallons. And so come get some chili. You get a cup. The donation goes to the Education Foundation. You can go check out the different chilies and cast your vote and for the best chili in Somers. If you would like to sign up a chili cooking team to compete in this, you still may do that. The space is limited to 10 teams. I think there's about 6. And so you can sign up at www.sefny.org, which is Somers Education Foundation, New York.org.
Yes.
Thank you, Richard.
Brilliant.
So, Richard, I just want to say that the town is putting in a team.
I've heard.
Yeah, the Townhouse Spice Miners.
Yes, I've heard, yes.
And it's going to be a reprise of the recipe, the Chili Bang Bang recipe.
Okay.
That came in second
By
2
the way,
years ago.
yes.
Close second.
But they're going to tweak it a little
But we're going
bit.
to tweak it a little
Close
bit.
second.
We're going to tweak it a little bit.
I won't be touching it.
No, the bang bang is the part.
All right, so it's going to be good.
And also, a week from Saturday, September 14th, is the Family Farm Festival at Stewart Farms. There's going to be food trucks, apple crisp, family-friendly games, raffles, and more. So please come out and have a great time. And also, as most people remember, thousands of Somers kids headed off to school for the first time this school year. And we wish them all the best in success and happiness in this great year, in this
Yep.
great school year.
Go to bed, do your homework.
And we tell people to leave a little bit more time in the commute, look at the corners, and, it's not the old days where everybody got picked up at their driveway. Now they're at spots that maybe 4, 5, 6 houses are sharing, and the kids, might be out on the road, especially when it, rain and all that. So just give yourself a little bit more time, be patient, and just everybody be safe.
Right, and on that same note, there will be enhanced code enforcement We'll be putting up our 2 new speed signs in selected areas in the town. So we take public safety very seriously here. I just have 2 more announcements here. This coming Saturday, at Muscoot Farm, there's going to be a hike and learn more about Muscoot Farm and its trails. That's 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. So you can go down there and then have plenty of time to come up to celebrate Somers. And also, they're running an art show at Muscoot Farm, and that's between 12 p.m. and 4 p.m. So a lot going on in our community.
As
Do all those
always.
announcements go on the website
They do.
so people can check there if you haven't missed any of this jumbled announcement process that we have?
I'm sure they're all.
What?
Look, this is the entertainment section of our town board meetings.
Oh, I'm sure nobody turned off the TV before
The
this.
4 people who are watching are confused.
Or maybe I should say, wake up, and then start the announcements. All right, any closing issues, comments, concerns?
I did have one more that I can't find, and I think I'll bring it for next week. The Somers High School class of 2020 is having a fundraiser that was,
Oh, the Wheels and...
Wheels and
That's,
something.
that's on the 15th, and it's a
Sunday.
car show and food
Right.
trucks.
Yep, so I was trying to get the exact times, and I just can't find it. So
Meals,
we'll give you more information on that, but that's all out on social media, and your kids should know about it from schools.
Right, so if you have a
The next
truck,
2
classic car, clean it up and bring it over to the high school.
The next 2 weekends are
I certainly will.
jam-packed.
Oh, yeah. When's the home opener?
Tomorrow night at Greeley at 7 o'clock is the football home opener. I think the other sports have all started.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think both the girls and the boys soccer team
They're off.
were victorious their first games out.
Awesome.
First game of home is.
Go Tuskers.
And the first game home is next week against, is it Rye next week or
No, Rise-
Yorktown?
Yorktown.
Next week is Yorktown, but
Ooh.
tomorrow night at Greeley.
Big game.
Ooh.
So come out and support.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Good night, Somers.